Hi everyone, good afternoon and welcome to our fourth National Careers Week webinar this week. We're joined today by one of our lecturers, Jayshree, who's going to be talking to you about town planning, careers in town planning and also what it's like to study it here at LSBU. We do have the Q&A box open today, so if you have any questions throughout the presentation for Jayshree, do please pop them in there and then we'll pick those up at the end and get them answered for you. I'm going to hand straight over to Jayshree to get started. Enjoy and use the Q&A box and interact with us. Over to you, Jayshree.
Thanks, Lucy. Really appreciate that. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Urban and Environmental Planning, or Town and Country Planning, or even just Town Planning at London South Bank. I'm Jayshree Astley. I'm one of the lecturers at South Bank University, and hopefully you'll get a little feel about what we do here and a little feel about town planning, because nobody really knows what it is. So, welcome to Urban and Environmental Planning at London South Bank. So, here's the big thing. If you're interested in anything you see on the screen, whether it's geography or designing places or buildings or architecture or levelling up, making sure everyone gets what they are entitled to, or people, places, sustainability, this is the right place for you. This is absolutely the right place for you. So, urban planning or town planning, what is it? Well, town planning is all about development, figuring out what to develop and where we're going to put it. Everything that you see around you is developed or planned in some way. You can't have a piece of land in this country and say, I'm going to build a 20-storey tower. You just can't do it. That means that somebody needs to get planning permission. So there's people like private consultancies, like what I'm in, that get planning permission for developers and landowners. And then there's the people on the other side, the council, and they're the decision makers. And they tell you yay or nay. Can you put whatever you want there or not? So town planning is all about development, where to develop and what you're going to put there. Also, it's a lot about what to protect. Lots of old buildings, they are what we call a finite resource. If you knock an old listed building down, it's not coming back again. So you need to figure out as a town planner what you're going to protect. And that's what we do. We create towns, we create cities, we create the countryside almost. We even protect trees. So this is what the RTPI says a town planner is. A town planner helps communities, companies and politicians, unfortunately, decide on the best way to use land and buildings. And that is what we do as a town planner. And it's also accredited. Town planning is a profession. Lots of people don't know this, but it is. It's a profession. And the Royal Town Planning Institute charters members to basically show that you're a professional. So if you do a town planning course, even at London South Bank, you will be able to be chartered by the RTPI, which gives you letters after your name, basically, and it licenses you to basically go off and plan. These are the kinds of developments that you could be involved in. Actually, for one of my old companies, I was involved in planning the Emirates Stadium, so Arsenal's new stadium when it moved over from Highbury. The Shard, somebody would have needed to get planning permission for a huge tall building like that. You could be that person, your company could be that person, and somebody on the other end would have had to give you permission for it, and that would be Southwark Council. So everything everywhere you see around you has been planned in some way, shape or form. HS2, transport lines, huge deals in lots and lots of areas, especially rural areas. HS2 needs planning. You can be on that side. You can see the 3 graces in Liverpool on your screen as well. All cities need planning. Those buildings need protecting. They're not coming back. So we protect those buildings. We protect the countryside. If you want to get involved in protecting places and shaping places and building places, town planning is definitely for you. So a little bit about my career path. Whilst I went to university to do town and country planning, Whilst I was at university, I did some work experience as an assistant planner at a private consultancy, and that is a little consultancy that gets planning permission for the people around you, for landowners, for developers, might be for your neighbours. So worked at a small consultancy whilst I was still at university. And then again, whilst I was still at university, I went to Manchester City Council, and basically every holiday or every time I had term time holidays, I went to the council and worked as a junior regeneration officer. And that meant going out to speak to the community about what they wanted to see. So that's another thing that town planners do. We look at, or we ask the community about what they would like to see in that area. If you want some more parks, if you want better lighting, if you want benches or green space for, granny, there's ways that you can ask the council to be able to fit that into their local plans. So the council undertakes strategic planning, which you can also be involved in, and that's what I did at the council. And then I graduated from my master's and went to a company called Savills, which are known as property agents or estate agents, but you can get a job in those kinds of places. And I was a retail planner, so I planned development like shopping centres, big retail parks, town centre shopping centres. So all the shops that you see usually need planning permission. And it was people like me that would go and get that planning permission from whatever area's council that they're in. Then I worked at Indigo Planning, which was another consultancy that was in Manchester and in London. Same kind of thing, big housing developments, big residential developments, big retail developments, but then bars and restaurants. Bars and restaurants also can't just be put wherever you to go in the places that they are. So I did lots of planning and speaking to people then. I then am now an independent planning consultant for P4 Planning. That's another consultancy that gets planning permission for lots of different developments across the country. And we deal with lots of residential developments, maybe in World Heritage sites. Sometimes they're in the green belt. So green belts are areas which haven't been built upon before and are meant to be protected. Or we could look at planning permission across a river area. And currently, as well as being a consultant, I am a lecturer in town planning. So if you came to South Bank University, you would get me as one of your lecturers. So that's just a little bit about my career path in town planning. I've been planning for about 16, 17 years now. So I've done a whole range of those jobs. A little bit about London South Bank University. One, it is a fantastic university for you to do town planning at. There is a huge mix of lecturers, those that have been working in planning like me, and some of the other lecturers that have experience in planning, but loads of experience in different cities, in research. They're very highly thought of in the planning world. So, two of the courses that we offer, which would be for you guys, would be the 3-year degree course, and you can do that as a full-time course or a part-time course. It's 3 years full-time and I think 4 years part-time. That's the BA Honours in Urban and Environmental Planning, so you get a BA Honours degree in that. The other course we also do at London South Bank is the Chartered Town Planning Apprenticeships, and that's slightly different. Those are sponsored by a company. So what you could do is get a planning job wherever it might be, and we'll go over some of the places you can get a planning job, but get a planning job and then apply on the apprenticeship course, and that way your workplace will pay for your degree, or sorry, your diploma. So you end up with a town planning diploma. You pay for your diploma and you get to come in 1 day a week from your work and undertake the course, which is a fantastic way of being able to get a qualification in town planning, which is accredited by the RTPI. That the Royal Town Planning Institute, which I showed you earlier, that we talked about earlier. So that is what we offer at London South Bank in terms of straight after college. After that, if you wanted to, you could also do a master's or a postgraduate diploma. So after you've got either of your qualifications, you can go on to do a postgraduate diploma or a master's in town and country planning. And we offer that as well at London South Bank. As I said, our degree courses are it teaches you some amazing things. Some of the projects that you do are like real world planning. It is about making sustainable places. It's about making places where people want to live, where people would like to live and play and work. And the lecturers that we have, as I said, a whole range, a whole mix. They're really good at what they do. The things that we teach you are fantastic. We've got a range of guest lecturers that come in from industry. We also go on field trips. So usually the field trips are Cornwall and I think Amsterdam, to have a look at the different ways different cities do planning or the different issues in planning. So those are always loads of fun. So where can you get a job? Well, you might be able to see on the slide at the moment, there is a map of England with loads of little red lines on. All those red lines are councils. Every single council across England and Scotland and Wales all have local plan. They are called local planning authorities. So every single council has a planning department because there is development all across the country. So basically it means that you can get a job at any of the councils across the country because there is a huge need for planners at the moment. There's a huge demand for planners at the moment. And all of these areas will have planning departments. So, for example, Southwark Council, where uni is based, that has a planning department. And at the moment, there's a desperate need for planners. That we're very much in demand. In private consultancy, there's a really big need for planners. What I mean by planning consultancy is places like Saville, CBRE, you know, the big consultancy or property agency groups. House builders, for any of the house builders, for any of the developers that you see when they're putting up new developments, you could be working for them. They all need planning permission. If you're more inclined to go on the rural side of planning, every council department has rural planning specialists or countryside specialists, environmental specialists, and also places like the National Trust. Transport for London would be if you're interested in transport, the underground, HS2, rails, you know, transport planner is another thing that you could do with these town planning degrees that we're talking about. So house builders, asset management, if you want to look after people's money, there are companies that do that. Investments, you can be a planner in a company that makes investments places. So actually this course lets you be involved in the built environment in so many different fields. And actually the government, if you wanted to work for the government, they have planning specialists. There is government policies on planning, which basically set out where you can make a development and where you can't make a development, or what kinds of developments that you can put in different places. So you can get involved in the strategic type of planning, or you can get involved in actually making planning applications. There are so many different career paths in town planning, and it's not just in the UK. I say the UK and beyond. I know planners in Australia, I know planners in New Zealand. Lots of them have studied planning in the UK and then gone on to different countries around the world to do planning. Dubai is another country that I know some planners. So there is prospects for you to move if you wanted to. But our town planning degree, our urban and environmental planning degree will get you there. And here's just some contact details. If you would like any more information, obviously we have a Q&A session if you need it, and here's some contact details, and I'm sure you can come back to this slide. Lucy, back to you.
Amazing. Thank you so much for that, Jayshree. It's really interesting to hear about your journey and obviously how then students could perhaps follow in some of your footsteps there through coming to LSBU. There's no questions at the minute, but I will give people a chance to put them in. In the meantime, I have some questions that I think might be useful for people who are on the call to kind of know about. The first one would be sort of work experience before they apply for the town planning degree. Is there anything you recommend that they could do, or even if it's not work experience, anything that they could read or look at or attend?
Absolutely. You could go to the RTPI's website, and I'm just going to flick back through the slides to the RTPI page. So the RTPI Planning Institute, and they have an array of different information about getting into town planning, what it's like, interviews with current town planners, what they do, a day in the life of these planners. So if you go to the RTPI's website, there's some fantastic information there. You don't really need to do anything before you come to university. It would be really good if you just had a really good interest in people, places, levelling up, buildings. Being inquisitive is really all you need. But the Royal Town Planning Institute has some fantastic material in terms of courses that are offered in town planning across the country, and also what you can do after it, so your career prospects as well.
That's really good. Thank you for sharing that. That's really important. So the RTPI seems to be the main point of call to look at perhaps after this webinar. Another question for you is, what do you or lecturers in general at the university look for in personal statements that might be useful for our students to put on those when they're applying?
So in a personal statement, we would look for your interests, and a lot of that is about your social interests in terms of levelling up, for example, making places better, making places more even, and that's what planners do. Planners are trying to make places better and be used by everyone. They're trying to shape the environment, and that's what we do. So we shape the environment for people to live in. So that's what we're looking for in a personal statement. We are looking for your interests in the built environment, or your interests in the social demographics of an area and how to make things better for all people. We're looking for your interest in maybe design, because you might think about designing places, or interests in making places better for people. Maybe it's an interest in sustainability and how that comes across. Really an enthusiastic, well-written personal statement is what everybody's after at the moment.
Amazing, thank you. That's really good advice. So my last question for you then, we'll just give it a couple more minutes, but just while you're thinking about this one, some people have asked all the academics this week, and it's hopefully a time for you to perhaps reflect a bit on your career, with it being National Careers Week. But what would you say is the highlight of your career as a town planner so far?
Oh my goodness, that is a difficult question. So what would I say was the highlight of my career? I honestly think it's the work that I do, and it's not one particular project, it's the whole package of town planning. In terms of the clients that I meet are really interesting. Their land interests, you know, some people have lots of land, some people don't have much land to play with. And so actually it's the amount of people that you meet and the projects that you get to do in planning, all of which combined, and just the social aspect of planning. Not many people know who planners are or what planners do. And when you meet another planner that knows what you do, it's sadly really good. So I don't have a career highlight per se. I really enjoy what I do. I love seeing the planning permissions that I've got put on the ground. So say I've got planning permission for a 200 unit residential development, so a big residential development. I love seeing that built. I love going past an area and saying, I got planning permission for that. I put that there. I'm trying to make a better place for people.
Mm-hmm. Definitely. It sounds like something to be really proud of when you can actually see something go from perhaps an idea to getting permission to then actually being built. That must be a really good feeling for you.
Absolutely. So you have an idea, or the landowner will have an idea. They will come to you with this is what they think they want to do, or what can I do with this piece of land? You give them some examples of what they could do based on the council's planning policies. So you need to make sure you know, or you can read up documents and sort of translate that to your clients and say, this is what you can do here. And then you go about getting planning permission for it and you build a case. And after building that case, it goes to the council planners. And then hopefully, if it's a good, sustainable development, they will approve it. And after that, the building work gets started. We don't get involved in the building work, but usually in time we get to see what we do on the ground. And that is a really good feeling.
Amazing, that sounds great, thank you. We do actually have a question that's just come in, and it says, are the town planning apprenticeships competitive, and what could you do to give yourself an advantage? So more about the apprenticeships there.
Right, so in terms of town planning apprenticeships, at the moment, there are actually lots of councils that offer them already at the moment, and actually some private consultancies that offer town planning apprenticeships. They are, I wouldn't call it, they are somewhat competitive, although more and more places are offering them, so they are opening up. The other thing is, it's not just a place that's offering it already. You can go to work or get a job as an assistant planner or whatever it might be with basically loads of companies, organisations, councils out there, and then you can apply with them to come on the apprenticeship course. So then London South Bank will work with your organisation, whether it's a council or a private consultancy or whatever it might be. So even though you're not on an apprenticeship at the moment, once you start working, your organisation can come to us and say, we would like to join your apprenticeship scheme. And then you can enroll on one of the apprenticeship courses and we make basically a contract with your organisation. So I wouldn't say that they are competitive as such, because you can go to any organisation and speak to them about joining a town planning apprenticeship, because it's beneficial for them and beneficial for you. It means that you're going to get your qualification in town planning, which will give you chartered, or which in the end, after doing more work, will give you chartered status. You're working for them 4 days a week. The organisation that you work for gets a grant from, I think it's somewhere in national government. So there is benefits for the organisation and there's benefits for you. So it's almost like a contract between you, your organisation, and London South Bank as a university. So you can go to an organisation not having signed up to an apprenticeship. You can then make that happen.
That's really useful to know, because I know apprenticeships are becoming quite popular, so it's good to know, how that kind of works. I think that's really important. Another question, which is quite a good one. It says, what is the difference between a diploma from an apprenticeship and a degree in town planning in terms of future career options? So are there any differences in what you can do afterwards if you haven't done the degree and you do a diploma or an apprenticeship, that kind of thing?
Fantastic question. I'd like to say nothing, but it's not nothing. It's different only in terms of the way you do it. If you do the town planning degree, it's an accredited degree, but it means that you don't get work experience on the way. I did a town planning master's, or degree and master's, sorry. And that was the regular course of how people did it, being a full-time or a part-time student. The advantage of an apprenticeship is that work pays for your diploma. At the end of it, the RTPI take you through a process which you can still do at the end of the degree. After the degree, you would need to get a master's and then apply for chartership status. After the town planning diploma, you then carry on within the route from the RTPI, so the chartership body, and they sort of carry you on so that you can be fully chartered. In terms of, is there any advantage over the other? With a diploma and the apprenticeship, you get experience on the job. And lots of town planning is based on experience on the job. So, but if you want to be a full-time student, then you don't lose anything. I mean, as I say, I was a full-time student, and I've had a job straight out of university, and I've never not had a job, and half the time I have two. So, I don't think there's no real advantage in terms of coming out of university with either a degree or a diploma. It doesn't mean that one is better or worse than the other.
Amazing, thank you so much. I think that's our last question, so I'll bring it to a close. That's some really useful information there, so thanks for answering those questions for us. What I will say is that if you do want some more information, as well as obviously looking at the RTPI website or contacting Jayshree and her colleagues, we do have an open day on the 26th of March. So Saturday the 26th of March, just in about 2 or 3 weeks' time. You're welcome to come to our campus, where I'm sure we'll be able to get more information on the courses, but also have a look around our university facilities and those kind of things as well. And you can sign up for that on our website, which is www.lsbu.ac.uk, and you can also see other events we've got going on, whether that's in town planning or in other courses that we have across the university. So do check that out. Thanks for coming along. Thanks, Jayshree, for sharing that experience with us. And yeah, enjoy the rest of your evenings, and hopefully we'll see you at an event soon. Thank you very much.